Good day everyone, this is Nemesis and today we are going to take a look at the Glass Cannon Necromancer. Before we can get underway, you need to know that this is not from a beginner's level, from a new player's level. This is more like a medium to high experience Necromancer player. I will leave an annotation to a video that you can check out if you're a new player, and that will explain everything. It's called Necromancer Tutorial, everything you need to know to get you started. Okay, so what does a Glass Cannon Necromancer mean? What does a Glass Cannon mean in general? Glass Cannon means you invest everything into offensive capabilities, and it's usually bursting type offensive. Why bursting type? Because condition type offensive implies damage over time, dots, bleeds, conditions. Damage over time means you're going to get stuck in that combat, in that fighting scenario for a longer period of time. That means you need to be sustainable. You need to have high survivability for your damage to kick in, to get the full benefit from your damage. So that means when you're doing condition type build, you will never have low survivability. That means you must invest something in a form of survivability, either toughness or vitality or something like that. And we all know that the gear stats are precision, toughness and condition damage, and I explained why toughness in the other video. So we invest everything into bursting, everything. So we need to choose our weapons of choice, and we know so far that axe and dagger are the main weapons for bursting. They both do high bursting damage, high direct damage. The axe also applies vulnerability, and we know vulnerability influences the bursting capabilities. It doesn't influence any kind of bleeding. So we have our auto attack, which applies vulnerability on the target, the big hitting ability, and the ability to kite. Unholy Fist gives cripple. For the offhand we use the focus because again it applies more vulnerability, and we need to progress in the vulnerability area for more damage, and chilling plus removing of 3 boons. Okay, the secondary weapon should be the dagger. Really nice close range damage, as well as a very hard hitting hit, which also gives healing and immobilize in case you need further kiting capabilities. Okay, we have our weapons. Now we move on to slot skills. What are we looking for when we think slot skills? Like always, like I've always said, further improve upon what you have. So you have vulnerability, high hitting skill, kiting capability, more vulnerability and regeneration, and chill and removing 3 boons. We so far lack AoE. So Well of Suffering provides not only AoE but even more vulnerability on your target. That's a really good skill. We take Well of Suffering, we scroll down and we find Spectral Wall. It also applies vulnerability, 10 stacks of vulnerability this time, has a 40-second cooldown, and also applies protection for us. This is a really underrated skill. I actually never saw anyone ever use Spectral Wall, ever. And that's when I got the idea to make the bursting build next and leave the condition build out, because I've seen proper condition builds out there. I've seen people that know how to use condition builds, but I haven't seen anyone use a proper full glass cannon bursting build. I've seen people claiming they use a full glass cannon bursting build, but that's not really true, because you will lack some vulnerability adding potential. So Spectral Wall, and because you need to fight sort of at a close range, the extra protection it applies kind of makes sense, doesn't it? You are closer, you are more likely to get hit, so you get protection on yourself. The last utility skill will be Spectral Grasp. It applies chilling and goes well with spinal shivers, which also applies chilling. So the monster is going to have a really low movement speed and really low skill recharge rate. But there's another reason why we use this particular skill. It gives 10% life force, and the meaning of this you will understand once we get to the traits part. Okay, we move on to the traits. We have Spite, Curses, Death Magic, Blood Magic and Soul Reaping. My voice is a little sore, sorry about that. In Spite we have Power and Condition Duration. So bursting means you have to do the maximum amount of damage with the fewest amount of hits. That means right off the bat critical strike chance, critical strike damage and power. Why do we have condition duration? Why? Well, it's simple. Vulnerability, 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 vulnerability. And you might think vulnerability isn't that important. Well, if you have 25 stacks of vulnerability on a target, you do 25% more damage. 25% more damage, which is very, very much. Trust me on that, it's very much. So, you need condition duration so that the vulnerability you apply to the target doesn't disappear by the time you do 2 more steps and get a chance to use your high hitting skill, like Ghostly Claws. So, it's safe. We can go into Spite. Gain life whenever you kill something, adds about 800, 900 HP. Not a bad minor trait, we get it anyway. And we end up at the 10th mark. Focus skills recharge 20% faster and have increased range. We know we use a focus and has an 80-second cooldown on Reaper's Touch, which gives us regeneration and applies vulnerability. The faster we can apply vulnerability, the more increased damage and more often do we get to increase our damage. So we take Spiteful Talisman. 5% of your power is given as bonus healing, so we can heal a bit. We need to survive in order to do our bursting, and even though we focus everything on bursting, the traits will compensate for our lack of survivability, because we want to be glass cannons, but we don't want to die at the same time, and we can securely focus on making our build a glass cannon, knowing that the traits will compensate by default just a little bit. So we move on to master traits. Life Blast and Plague Blast grants might for 15 seconds. This is a very important trait. You get, each time you use Life Blast, you get might for 15 seconds, and you will see when we get to the rotation part why this is so very important. So we take Reaper's Might. Gain might when hit under 25% health. We also gain might from here, we get might from here. This is a good minor trait, happy it's there. And we end up at Axe Training and Close to Death. Axe damage is increased and Axe skills recharge 20% faster. We use Axe, Focus, and we also use the Dagger. If we take Axe Training, whenever we switch to Dagger, we won't do as much damage. So we need to take something that encompasses all your skills. So we take Close to Death. Okay, we move down, we see Precision and Condition damage. And we know Precision adds critical strike chance, which is good for the bursting build, but the condition damage is wasted. We don't have anything that applies conditions that do damage. So the condition damage is worthless for us. So we don't go into this straight pass, no matter what people say. Because if you see about Precision, critical hits have 66 chance to cause bleeding, more bleeding, not a bursting build. Look at all the traits. Gain Fury, 2% increased damage for each condition on your foe. More condition related builds. We have Poison, Bleeding Duration, and a lot of things related to bleeds and condition damage are in this path. So conditions inflicted by the scepter, and we don't even use the scepter, so this path is not for us, trust me on that. We move on, toughness and boon duration. We don't really use that, we don't focus on that, because we have agreed that we are focusing on a glass cannon bursting. Vitality and healing, not good for us either. Critical strike damage and life force pool. We know we need critical strike damage. So, increase life force gain from skills by 10%. This is really good. You can keep with this and life force from Spectral Grasp, life force from Reaper's Touch, and life force from Ghostly Claws. Alongside this trait, we can gain life force very quickly, and you will see why this life force is so important for us. We move on to the adept traits, and we get Unyielding Blast. Life Blast pierces and causes vulnerability. So when we use life blasts, we get might and causes vulnerability while piercing. It's more about positioning, so you can pierce properly. We'll get to that when we get to rotation. So life blast pierces and causes vulnerability, even more vulnerability, so we know this is a decent trait. Gain spectral armor at 50% health, minor trait. Don't we have something similar? Spectral armor, let me see. Spectral armor, gain life force, we know we need life force. Gain protection. We have another skill that helps you gain protection, Spectral Wall. So as you can see, we're just stacking upon everything we decided so far. We improve on our desired path in a very proper way, and we can be sure of our decisions. So this is part of the whole. This is a very good minor trait, very important as well, because we are really glass cannonish and we don't want to be too squishy. We know we want to go in the glass cannon path, but we don't want to die instantly, because that's just stupid. So we end up at the master skills, and the reason my next trait is in this order is, you know, I took Spectral Grasp, which generates protection and vulnerability. That protection goes well with Last Grasp. The vulnerability goes well with all the other skills. Vulnerability is important for bursting. I also have Spectral Grasp, which gives life force. With this, that gives life force, and Ghostly Claws that give life force. Goes well with gluttony. So we know that we should use 2 spectral skills, because it is encouraged to use those spectral skills because of their stats and what they do. So what if in Soul Reaping we find something that reduces the cooldown of our spectral skills? What if we find that? Spectral skills recharge 20% faster. We take that, we are sure of our decision, and as you can see, we apply vulnerability more often, we get protection more often, we get to pull our fall and chill it, and we get life force more often. Very good. You do 5% more damage if you have more than 50% life force. See? This is why we need life force so much, and this is not the only reason. You will see when we get to the rotation. This is why we need life force so much. We need to maintain our life force high. We need to be able to maintain our life force high, because we get 5% more damage. We get 20% more damage when enemies are below 50% health. We get 5% more when we have 50% life force. So that's 25% more. If we get 25 stacks of vulnerability, that's another 25% more damage. That's 50% more damage. 50% more damage right here. Right from the stats. That's 50% more damage. So, last but not least, we have Death Shroud or gain stability. Stability is not really important, PvE doesn't matter so much. near to death. Death Shroud recharges 50% faster. We take that. But why? Why do we want to go into Death Shroud every 5 seconds instead of every 10 seconds? We will answer this question when we get to the rotation. All your questions will be answered. So, we have 10 points left. So here is where the build gets a bit more flexible. You can either get Reaper's Precision to get even more life force while performing a crit. I don't really recommend it because you lose the condition damage, but you can still do it if you think you cannot manage your life force really well. Toughness and Boon duration, let's see. We'll get 400 toughness while channeling, and we will be channeling quite a bit. Yeah, not bad. But the most important is full of life regeneration. We have regeneration, and at the first adept trait we have, where is it? Siphon health whenever you critical hit. And you do critical hit a lot because we know this build is focused on critical hitting. So we take this. And this is our build. Everything that we have decided to take has been explained and is part of a whole, is part of it further improves on the path we have chosen. Okay, we move on to gear. We need power, precision and critical strike damage. We know we need power, precision, critical strike damage. Power so the hits really hard, precision for the critical strike chance, and critical strike damage is for whenever you crit, you do a really high crit. So power, precision, critical strike damage, power, critical strike damage and precision, the orb. So you need Berserker gear, which you can find in Citadel of Flame, and Ruby Orbs. This is the Berserker gear. The weapons. Berserker weapons. No question about it. In the weapons, what do you use? You use Superior Sigil of Frailty. Why Superior Sigil of Frailty? It only gives 30% chance on critical to inflict vulnerability, as opposed to Superior Sigil of Earth for the condition build, which gives 66% chance on critical to apply extra bleed. So wouldn't that be fair to have 66% chance on critical to apply vulnerability? Well, not only does the bleed doesn't last as long, lasts about 8 seconds, not 10 seconds, but also this hits twice. So you get 2 hits per second, and the scepter hits once per second. So it's kind of the same thing. Also, this hits 8 times in 3 seconds. That's more than 2 hits per second. Again, if you apply vulnerability with a 66% chance of applying that vulnerability, you will apply vulnerability far too much. So I know it's a bit small and you think it's small, and it kind of is, but it's still balanced compared to everything else. So this is why we take Superior Sigil of Frailty on both weapons, in case we need to switch every now and then, every 10 seconds when we finish our rotation. On the focus we have Superior Sigil of Perception for more precision. We need precision because, as you can see, we have only 40 critical strike chance, which is embarrassing. If you ask me, it's embarrassing, it's not enough. But with Superior Sigil of Perception we will end up at about 55% critical strike chance, so it's over 50%, it's good. Back piece, you can get it from fractals, it's not that hard. Power, precision, critical strike damage. Ruby earrings, power, precision, critical strike damage. Ruby necklace, power, precision, critical strike damage. And the rings with power, precision, critical strike damage from fractals. As you can see, I have invested everything into power, precision and critical strike damage, and I end up with about 3.3 attack, critical strike chance 40%, but with the extra 250 precision you will end up at 55 critical strike chance, and you have 109 critical strike damage, 1800 armor, and almost 20,000 HP. 20,000 HP for a glass cannon, that's not bad. And here is where we are going to make a small discussion. But before that, I need some water, so I'm thirsty. So, before we discuss something very important regarding the damage we will do in comparison to other classes, we are going to see a simple demonstration here. So, we apply vulnerability, and we have 22 stacks, and we overkill. So you kind of one-shot mobs in ore with this build. And now the well is on cooldown, we have the spectral wall. We can continue applying vulnerability without worrying. So you put the wall here, you let the mob come, you go on the others and overkill again, and you start bursting. And oh, come on, that's a normal hit. Now the spectral wall is on cooldown, and we have the well of suffering. We go to a mob, so that's the thing. Whenever you have Death Shroud, so as you can see, it's not bad but not really good, because everyone says that Rending Claws does too little damage, and I agree. Rending Claws does too little damage to be your auto attack. So what if we find a new auto attack? A new auto attack for us. The new auto attack will be the one that applies vulnerability each hit, hits harder, and also gives you might. Do you guys know what auto attack I'm talking about? No? I will show you in a second. You use the channeling skill just to power up your life force, and once you power up your life force, your auto attack will be Life Blast from Death Shroud. Full power up, more vulnerability, and now our life force is almost full. So this will contradict the fact that people said a Necromancer cannot apply vulnerability. It's not true. Necromancer, as you can see, applies vulnerability without any problems. And if you have more problems applying vulnerability, still not good enough, you can use 36% condition duration, and then you know for a fact that your vulnerability will stay at least 16 seconds on the target, and 16 seconds is more than the Reaper's Touch, so you basically always have 12 stacks of 15 stacks of vulnerability on the target. You always have that. You always have 15 stacks of vulnerability because it lasts 16 seconds and the cooldown is 14 seconds. So you can use that for PvE roaming. But if you're in a dungeon and there's more people and at least one or two of them will apply vulnerability as well, you don't really need that to apply so much vulnerability yourself, and you can use precision and critical strike damage because we know we lack some precision. As you can see, we are almost at 50% and I'm only at 6 stacks of accuracy, but I'm at 117 critical strike damage. So Let's see how some proper damage looks like. 4K. I'm killing mobs too fast. Okay, let's find some new mobs. Charge my life force. Come on, Reaper's touch. And Ghostly Claws, 7.5k on a hit. And we switch, we immobilize, we need to regenerate, no problem. As you can see, it gives 200 and 250 every now and then, so that's a really good hit. We wait to switch back, vulnerability, some more, and we can go into death route and hit it for massive hits, if it criticals. And at the moment it doesn't, because I'm still under 50%, but I will charge myself to full accuracy and I'll come back with even a better demonstration. So as you can see, that's your auto attack. Life Blast. The more life force you have, the higher damage it does. That's your auto attack, not Rending Claws. And as you can see, if I crit, I do massive, around 5-6 between 5 and 7k hits every second. Those are massive hits. Between 5 to 7k hits, only thieves do so much in solo roaming. So bursting, Necromancer bursting is not bad. So many people said Necromancer doesn't have bursting capabilities at all. Yeah, of course, if you go and you just auto attack like this, as you can see, it's close to nothing. But if we do just one and then we switch and you use the proper auto attack, do you see the difference? The difference is insane, and you can apply 25 stacks of vulnerability like so easy. All you have to do, I have protection now, drag him over there, fear the target. Anyway, I didn't do it properly. You get what I mean. So hit. This bursting build is not bad at all, and I'm still not at, well, I'm 53% critical strike chance, but I can go even higher. One moment. The problem in this build is you lack AoE. You lack AoE, and I will explain in a few seconds why you lack AoE. $5k with an extra 5k. What more do you want out of a glass cannon that has 20,000 HP and can apply vulnerability, protection, can pull, has chilling, and has life force pool that regenerates really fast, and death shot, which basically doubles your HP bar. It's the Necromancer's version of glass cannon. See what I mean? Do you see what I mean? It's really nice. I'm going to find some veterans and do some hits on them. I'm still not used to this build, and I don't think I will get used to it because I don't like not having AoEs, and this build lacks AoE capabilities. Okay, the final stats are 56% critical strike chance. Good. So why do we lack AoE in this build? Glass cannon builds usually, bursting glass cannon builds are usually against single target, because if you do against multiple targets, if you do more damage against multiple targets, if let's say for example life transfer would do more damage than this, then everyone would use just AoE skills. Why use single target skills if your AoE skills do more damage and hit AoE? It's not right. So that's why single target will always do more damage on a single target than in AoE. That's why you don't have AoE. If you focus for AoE damage build, that's the Conditionmancer. I mean, I will cover that soon enough, but the Conditionmancer will always have less single target damage, because if it had more single target damage and more AoE damage than all the other builds, why would you even bother going for a bursting build? So that's the philosophy, that's the thought process behind that. Also, when I made this build, my benchmark for how much damage it puts out was the warrior. We all seen the warrior that solos Ara, and he was hitting with 1000 blades, I think. He was hitting about 18k. That means you get stuck in place for 3 seconds. 18k over 3 seconds, that is about 6k per second. If you crit 3 times with my skills, you do around 18k, because as you can see it's between 7k and 4k. It's not nearly 18k, let's say an average of 15k. It's less than the 18k that the warrior can pull out. But he can only do that, he can only keep the 6k per second for 3 seconds until his skills ended. I can do mine much longer. I can have like 6 or 7 skills in that period of time, consecutive skills. Also, by the time he switches to another target, I can continue to do my damage and he cannot. He wastes a bit of time switching the target and getting to that target. So melee classes, glass cannon melee classes, are meant to do more damage than range glass cannon builds, because if you are doing more damage as a glass cannon from range than a melee from range, then why would you even bother to be why would you even bother with a melee glass cannon build? Because as a melee you take far more risk and the reward needs to be higher as well, because as a melee you go close to a target, if the target turns around and slaps you, you're dead. Whereas the caster, it doesn't matter. You can do the bursting, you can stop and run away. So let me see, there's a broodmother here, let me see if I can pitch in. 25 stacks of vulnerability, I don't really need to bother with vulnerability on the target that much. 6k, and now we burst a bit. And we still some life force. Just a bit more. And just a bit more. Life force almost max. 5k, obstructed for some reason. 5k, 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 2k, 2k. I'm 9k. Are you serious, man? 9k, come on. 5k. Anyway, as you can see, the bursting potential is really high for a range class that has almost 20k HP, has a lot of protection, has a lot of chilling, and has Death Shroud. Necromancer, bursting Necromancer is not bad at all, and is the equivalent to the melee bursters. Melee bursters do more damage with glass cannon bursting builds, but that is because they take higher risks, and because of those risks they cannot keep up with the range classes. If I want to switch a target, I just click and point, that's it. If a melee has to get from over there to over there, he loses 1 or 2 hits. So that is the reasoning behind that. I know some of us would like to do to have the thieves capability to burst with the guardian's protection and all of this while being at range and have time warp on. That's not possible. And if you want to be more of a thief class, if you want to hit even more than a necromancer, if you want to do that, then play a thief. Classes have to be different but also equivalent. So that is the reasoning behind the glass cannon build. It's not really complicated, not hard to make either. You can obtain all these items with relative ease, and this is the rotation behind it. There isn't a rotation for switching between condition and bursting, it's far less complicated. All you have to do is manage your vulnerability properly. Don't use Well of Suffering and Spectral Ore and all of that at the same time, because it's an overkill. Sometimes use Well of Suffering, sometimes use Spectral Wall. Never forget to use Spectral Grasp to have life force up as much as possible, and don't waste all your life force. If you get to half, that's enough, because you need the 5% bonus damage. So if you need AoE, your AoE is lacking, like I said, but you have Well of Suffering and you can use Life Transfer, and it's still a big AoE, as you can see. It's a big AoE, it's not bad. And you can also AoE if you properly stack mobs one on top of the other, and that you can do by pulling mobs with Spectral Grasp. As you can see, it has a really long range. I pull this one here, I go here and I hit both of them, but they move. It's more complicated. Can be done in dungeons, but you need more people for that, so they take the pressure off of you. So I know some of you, even myself, expect it to hit harder. Keep in mind, you don't have any sort of might or fury on you. If you have might and fury in a team, you can do far more damage. With fury you end up at 76% critical strike chance. With might you end up at 4k attack. And also, the most important part, if you're in a dungeon fighting multiple opponents and they die around you, your life force almost never runs out. So your really nice auto attacks, you can basically stay in those auto attacks for a very long period of time without having to come out of Death Shroud to recharge your auto attacks. So protection for myself, right, more vulnerable. Oh, come on. As you can see, even without 20 stacks of vulnerability, I can still hit for 7 and something K. That's a big hit. That's a big hit. 6k, 5k, 5k, 6k, 5k, 6k. Around 5k. 5k DPS is really nice. Condition Mancer on a single target can only go up to 3.5k. I so love one-hitting mobs around door, I don't know. $4k. Just one more and then I'm done. Just one more. 5k, 4k. So, or was that 4k? Like I said, this was the bursting build, the maximum bursting potential for the Necromancer. It's also the definition of a glass cannon applied to the Necromancer. Feel free to leave any questions, comments, feedback, negative, positive, in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, hope you found it useful, and until next time, enjoy your gaming and have a good day.